This is Mark Hummel's Harmonica Party. I'm here with Chris Layton, famed drummer from Austin, Texas.
Austin.
And you're still in Austin.
I still am in Austin. Yeah.
Wow. Now, did you grow up there?
No, I grew up in two places, Corpus Christi, Texas, and a little
Okay.
town north of that named Mathis, Texas, 40 miles north, a little farming community.
Yeah.
Split half my childhood, like from birth until, I guess, a year after high school.
Right.
All that time was split between those two places.
So when did you start playing drums in high school?
I mean, like in bands, professionally?
Well, just
or-
playing. Were you in the marching band or any?
I started beating around on stuff when I was about 6 years old, but
okay.
I got a drum, and I got an actual snare drum in beginner band. I was in a fifth grade.
Okay.
That's what they did in Mathis.
Ah,
They had
okay.
several different bands. Beginner bands started that early. How old would fifth grade be? I should know this. I can't remember.
It'd probably be 9 or something.
9, 10.
Yeah,
it was
something
maybe,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, and so I took band from that through junior high. I mean, it's where I learned the reading that I think I used to know. But
Right.
when I was about that same age, a friend of mine, his older brother had a Ludwig drum kit that he'd stopped playing, so his older brother let me rent it from him for 25 cents a week.
Well, that must have broken the bank.
It was kind of a lot of money.
If it wasn't for your paper route.
Back in those, well, I wasn't into paper route yet, but I was collecting Coke bottles.
Ah, okay.
Remember when you would return bottles for
I do
refund? You actually
remember
could,
that.
kids could
Right.
be enterprising back then.
Yeah.
Now they just wonder when they're going to get their new iPhone.
Right. When is mommy and daddy going to pay for
When
it?
are you going to give me something?
Yeah.
Anyway, so so I did that kind of off and on, enough to actually have a picture somewhere of me playing that drum kit. Red Sparkle Ludwig drum kit.
Do you remember what got you into music to begin with?
I do. I was, you're young and you hear the radio and the family. I had 2 older sisters, and then my parents, they played music also, but, and you listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
And my sisters had gone off and they'd come back with some records, and they put Chubby Checkers, The Twist,
Right.
on the Motorola console
Uh-huh.
stereo. And when the Twist came on, it was like I froze and my hair stood up and I got
Yeah.
goosebumps.
Yeah.
And that's like when something hit me different than just listening to music. And,
Right.
I heard it's got that intro, and then there's the break before
Right.
it picks up into the first line of the first verse. And I went out into the garage, and I got some snippers, and I went outside and I cut some oleander bushes because they grow
Wow.
real long from the bottom. They grow, and I cut them and I whittled the bark off of them and just used them to start beating around on to everything.
Wow.
And so it was like something really changed.
Yeah. You were like you're automatically a drummer at that point.
I guess I was.
Yeah.
It's so funny because you think of in anything in life, I go, where is it that something changes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that was something where I went from like somebody who listened and enjoyed music to now I was like engaged in it.
Right.
And now I was like there. I went
Yeah.
from here to there.
Yeah.
And so that began the whole thing of like beating on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you remember what was your first rock and roll band that you were in? Is that in Corpus or was that in...
No, I didn't have a rock. So there were some guys that I would meet, and we would like do the whole garage thing. Me and a guitar player, a couple of different people I knew, and me and a guy named Dondi Williams and Jeff Anderson, a little trio. We actually did a gig at the Corpus Christi Naval Air Station for some kind of little party thing. I think we played like 20 minutes or something. But
Wasn't there some kind of a scene in Corpus? Like, weren't there like other people?
well, there were
Wasn't that King Carrasco guy? Wasn't he from there?
No, Joe King Carrasco was from the Panhandle. He was from a little town
okay.
north of Amarillo called Dumas. Oddly enough, the same place that Tommy Shannon was from.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and it's like an old pipe fitters,
Did they know each other?
I think they had run into each other, but I don't really know what that deal was. Of course, they knew each other later,
Right.
but I don't really know what their history was.
Yeah. He was pretty popular in Texas.
Yeah, he was. He was a
Yeah.
big MTV guy.
Was he really?
Yeah, because he had a real party kind of band idea, and MTV, kind of like us when we got the deal with Epic Records, and Texas Flood came out. They had that promise of 20 videos 24/7, and they were really starved for content. So they repeated a lot of people. We were the beneficiaries, as he was too.
Boy, there's nothing like timing, is there?
And you know what? You can't really put that together. I've never been able to put that together. Well, it just shows up.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things in life. You go like, what? How, I look back on a lot of things. I go, so many things fell into place just in the right way at the right time that could have easily never happened, but they did.
Right.
But to the MTV thing, Joe King Carrasco, it was a real party thing, like a great frat sorority band, beach party band, and they'd made a video or two, and MTV started playing it. They were playing us in medium to sometimes heavy rotation because they just didn't have enough content.
Yeah.
And if a few years later, it's like like anything else, like radio, you couldn't hardly get on it unless whatever.
Yeah.
So where was the how do we?
Well, I was just asking you about
you thought he was
the
from
Corpus
down there.
scene.
Oh, the Corpus scene.
Yeah.
No, I mean it was kind of I would say like in the humanities, if you will, where you talked about writers and musicians and various artists and stuff. I would say it was probably kind of a thin
scene down there.
if you will. There were some really great bands that came out of there. The Bubble Puppy. They were a band on International Artists. It was a Houston label. It actually had somewhat of a national hit called Hot Smoke and Sassafras. There was a really great band called the Zachary Thacks. That a really good band. And the thing was, they made a record, and they were all like 14, 15 years old. They actually wrote all the songs and recorded it. It's actually good.
That's pretty amazing.
No, and in fact, Stan Moore was his name. Not to be confused with Stanton Moore from New Orleans, but Stan Moore, he ultimately made it to L.A. and played on some of the Sunset Strip clubs. He was roommates with Jim Gordon for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really, really, really good drummer.
Yeah.
And then, he met a fateful end, but
kind of like Jim Gordon.
In a way.
In a way. Yeah.
Self-induced.
Right.
Directly on himself.
Yeah.
Stan Moore, but anyway, so there were people, there were players, there was a few bands. The Zachary Thacks were to South Texas, kind of like Jimmy Vaughan and those guys. The Chessmen were to like North Texas.
Right.
The same age group. Right. Young
now,
guys.
Now, did you ever see that band when they were around?
No, the Chessmen or Zachary Thacks?
Chessmen.
No, I didn't, because I never got up to North Texas.
Yeah. When did you get to Austin?
1975, December.
75. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
That was a good time to be in Austin.
It was a good time to be in Austin.
Yeah, because it was just starting to heat up there.
Austin was really kind of beyond description.
Yeah.
For the first 15 years that I lived there.
Yeah.
It seemed like an eternity.
Yeah.
But it was because once I started traveling, started touring because of Stevie and Double Trouble and so on. I went all over the place, and I never saw a place that was even remotely similar to Austin.
Right.
It was really off the charts different.
Right.
It was so wild.
Wes Starr was saying he used to do a lot of tours with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
With Omar.
Mm-hmm.
I think he said Omar, you guys, and what was that guy's Christopher Cross?
Yeah, but we didn't tour together.
I thought all three of you guys toured together. So, really?
No, because Christopher Cross, that big, huge hit record came out in like 81. I think it was, and that went, it was like sold 18, 20 million records and garnered all those Grammys, and they were out touring with Fleetwood Mac. And
okay, well, I thought he was talking maybe about before that. I thought he was talking about before.
They didn't tour that. Christopher Cross was like a guy, and those guys were a band, and they played at a place called, there was two clubs in Austin. There was Steamboat Springs. Right. There was one on 6th Street that we would play, and there was one up north, and they played that. I think they did one night a week there religiously, and all they did was play covers. They were a cover band. He was writing those songs, and then he got a deal, and when that record came out, we went, well, what the?
Right.
What is who? We didn't know, right? And all of a sudden, this was a huge record. I think he got nominated for like 7 Grammys.
Wasn't he the one that had a song in that movie Arthur?
Yeah, that was the next thing that happened.
Right.
Was
Yeah. That was pretty
caught
huge.
Between the World and New York City.
Right.
Between the Moon and New York City.
Right.
Between the World. between the moon and New York City. Yeah, that was a huge hit.
So now Wes said you were not really a blues drummer when Stevie picked you up. You were playing rock or something.
Well, coming from Corpus, I went to a year of music school, and the only thing that I really did there was scheme a lab band, because Del Mar College, which was a very legit music school, had a 2-year program, and a lot of people that left there were kind of on track for as Juilliard students. It was kind of the idea.
Wow.
Go to Del Mar for 2 years and then go to Juilliard.
And where was Del Mar?
In Corpus Christi.
Oh, that was in Corpus.
Yeah,
okay.
so I did that because I thought I don't know what else to do, and I was a biology major.
Really?
That's what it was going to be my major, and I went.
Wow.
Because I always had an interest in biology, and it was that time when people were like, "Yeah, everybody should go to college."
Right.
If they can, because that means.
Right.
And I went, I don't have any idea. There was a whole bunch of stuff in my family. My father was close to death, and I thought, I don't even know what I'm doing. I was playing in a band when you're talking about my first rock and roll band. When I got out of high school, some guys asked me to join this band, which was a club gig. Being in a cover band, we did 4 sets a night. That was the only time I'd ever played in a cover band. Was the very first band I was in that was a professional thing, and I got a weekly paycheck, and and I did that for 7-8 weeks. Is all I did that for. But I thought, well, I guess I should go to music school, and kind of like maybe a lot of other people when they're like 18 years old, you don't really know who you are, what the hell you're doing, generally speaking.
Right.
And you're kind of going, well, I do this, I like that, I need to try to make a living, and whatever it all is. And so I did that. I went to school. I just kind of wasn't into it. I don't really want to take music theory, and I want to go to my piano classes. I kind of wasn't in the frame of mind for it. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll convince the department that they should have a lab band, because this school in North Texas has one. And, there's this school in Berkeley.
What is a lab band?
I guess a bunch of guys playing music, or, playing written music, and they're in school learning how to read and play music and all that. So it's probably another, just an expression of something other than just being in classrooms. And
right.
I mean, it's a lab band, laboratory,
right.
music. I
right.
mean, I've never been in one other than that one. Basically, all we did was I got some guys and we put a band together. We just played songs on the radio that we liked, and everybody in the legit department was like, "Well, okay," it's like pick up the pieces by the average white band, and what is hit by
right. Tower of Power,
and so on, and like they're going, "Yeah, that's okay." And then that year was over, and the summer came around, and my father passed away that August of that summer. Right, I was 75, and I started school again, and I got into it, and I went, you know what? Something said, you got to get out of here. So I just, I had been to Austin in 1969. I had a sister, over 6.5 years older than me, and I'd gone up for a long weekend, and she'd taken me. The first thing we did was go see the band.
Wow.
In '69, and then she took me all over Austin, showed me all this neat stuff, and
that's something.
That was really something.
Yeah.
I saw those guys when they were like hitting at their prime.
Right.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Like,
right after their first album.
So all these kind of things, kind of like you download, if you will, this kind of stuff. You're
right.
like, this is, man, that's how you do that kind of thing.
Right.
I'd seen concerts.
Right.
Growing up, prior to that, but you look at that and you go, man, this is really the thing that's going on there. But so when 1975 comes around, excuse me, I thought, I got to get out of here, and I thought, I'll just go to Austin. And I grabbed a couple of guys that we were hanging out together and jamming, and I said, let's get a band and we'll take it to Austin. And so they went, I go, like, as soon as we can. So a couple of days later, we were going to Austin.
Wow.
A friend of ours who had been in this band, that was put together band, it was some protege of this new find that Willie Nelson had come across, and it was a statewide talent search, and a couple of guys they picked out of Corpus and had this band up there, and they came back right about that time. They said, man, that whole thing was like a big drug deal, man. He got popped and feds raid the house. And they go, well, you guys, they go, well, no, we weren't there, but we just split from our place. They have this little shack out in Manor, Texas, 14 miles outside Austin. They go,
right.
Yeah, man, we just paid rent like day before yesterday. I go, did y'all just abandon and came back? And they went, yeah. And we went, we'll go stay there. So we went and squatted in the house and had our first month's rent.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, we said, can I get the key from you?
Right.
So we went. Maynard, Texas, Austin, Texas, and we went to that house. And we just said, okay, here we are. We got some foam, like cot-sized foam pieces at the Army Navy surplus, and we just slept on those. And we go, now we're in Austin. They go, now what are we going to do?
So we better rehearse.
I know, well, so that's what we did all day, and then we went down to see if we could get gigs, and nobody gave a shit. They're like, we got so many of you people here.
Right, yeah.
And that was the same old story, It was
Yeah.
like, it was kind of a mecca, and there was so much music there. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they go, nobody asked you guys to come here.
Well, it seemed like it was a real magnet for music in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
You had
It was kind of a liberal.
Willie Nelson there, and I think Leon Russell was coming there.
Well, he
a
would
lot.
come. Everybody would come there. There was the Armadillo
Right.
World Headquarters.
Commander Cody.
It was
and all
kind
those
of
guys.
like a liberal Mecca escape
Yeah,
locale.
yeah.
Let me see, I just made that up.
Right.
It's like it was so. I mean, that was like when liberalism kind of was something different. Everybody was like, "Yeah, man, it's all peace and love, we're
Oh
all
yeah.
grooving." And
it was like the only spot for that.
no. I mean,
Yeah.
no, it was, and I kind of always wondered. I go, how did Austin get to be the way that it was? It's so kind of bizarre, really, when you consider the rest of the state. I mean, given there's a lot between practicing like.
Yeah, it could have been the university too.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, the capital is there, so that's kind of
Right.
a stable structure,
Exactly.
right? And then you have a university,
Right.
and then you have all that kind of stuff that's kind of at least at that point in time was liberalism and openness was like come in and have challenging ideas and
Right.
what do you got going on, and people had debates and arguments, and it was all that kind of real vibrant kind of
Right.
intellectualism, academia.
I think it was
artistry.
almost like the Berkeley of Texas.
Yeah,
in a way,
I would say so, because I went to Berkeley
yeah.
a few years later, and there was a thing
Right.
about that Berkeley reminded me of Austin.
That's
at
where
the time.
I ended up. I
You
ended up
did?
in Berkeley. Yeah.
So at that time, in that way, right?
Yeah.
So there were those two things, and they were kind of the stability. I mean, that's really, there was no industry there. You had
Right.
state government and all the employees, you had the university system and the employees,
Mm-hmm.
and all that. It was kind of a whole different thing, and but I'm not really sure exactly how that became that still.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say, well, we got running water, and we got a place to buy food, and there's housing. Like they go, so what about all the rest of it?
It just seemed like in the 70s there was this real thing of like there were certain towns. I mean, I know them. It was
Madison, Wisconsin.
I was going to say Venice Beach, Berkeley, San Francisco,
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor was definitely
Michigan.
one. I went to Ann Arbor
Yeah.
back then. Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder, Colorado.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of
right.
small little, like you say, Madison.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
It was almost all educational.
yeah, somebody
towns,
once said, one of these great thinkers, I forget who it was, said, you take any town, city, and you put a university into it, give it 100 years, and everything will change radically.
Right.
So we got there, and it was me and a guy, Sid Sanchez, and his brother Ricky. We had a band, we called it La Paz. We picked it off a town in Belize or Central America. We go, that's a cool sounding name, They're going, yeah. They go, yeah, we're Mexicans, right? I go, yeah. We go, La Paz sounds cool. And then I think we did 2 gigs for free, and then everybody says, we got to get jobs, because we're like, we can't even, we're getting on the beginning, we can't pay rent. We're not going to be able to pay rent or eat. And
Right.
so that's when everything changed.
Yeah.
You
So who did you end up with after that?
Well, I ended up on my sister's couch. That's where I went next.
Right.
And I had 3 jobs. And then she kicked me out, literally. She threw all my shit in the yard and said, you got to go. And so I got an apartment, and in the neighborhood was this guy named Dan Del Santo, who was a transplant from Poughkeepsie, New York. Him and a guy named Terry Lacona came down from, and Terry Lacona became the producer, also City Limits co-producer of the Grammys.
Wow.
Right?
That's heavy
Ultimate.
duty.
Yes, and so I worked with him. I actually, working with him was it was just a musical experience, because I had to actually keep the jobs just to do that music.
Right.
And I think what really happened for me, and it was one of those, again, it was one of those moments where you're going, okay, I enrolled back in school, I've got 3 jobs, and I'm playing with Dan Del Santo, and I'm going, what am I doing? Where am I going? Who am I? Still that thing of, I just say, applicable to me. It was like that youth where you're going, what am I going to do with my life? And I played drums, been playing drums like for years, and I just didn't know. And then Joe Sublette, do you know Joe?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So Joe Sublette,
yeah.
Joe Sublette and I became roommates, and he started playing in this band, Paul Ray and the Cobras, which I didn't know anything about any of them. I didn't know anything about them, really, but he came home one evening from a gig. He said, "Hey man, I was talking to Lissa Hattersley, and she's a singer in this band, Greasy Wheels, and they're looking for a drummer. I told them about you. I got her phone number." And so I called them up, and they auditioned me, and they said, "We want you to be in our band." And I went, "Okay." So I did, and then I actually had a professional gig where we were touring.
Wow.
Not like big scale touring, but I was getting
Texas,
Texas and other places. We went to New York State, but I got a paycheck every Friday. So I went, you know what? I'm a professional drummer. To do all that, I quit school, quit the jobs, and I'm a guy playing in a band getting a weekly paycheck. So I go, I'm a professional, like a full-fledged. I go, this must be it.
Yeah.
And this takes sometimes whatever it takes, like a gong, on the head. You go, okay, that's what I am.
Yeah.
And, I did that for I guess 8 or 9 months, and we were busy, and. Just said, man, you got to come out and see our band. You were talking about, did I come from a rock band? Well, when I was at Del Mar and during those early years, I was listening to stuff like Herbie Hancock and funk stuff, and there was all this kind of stuff that we were listening to down in Corpus. Ronnie Law, Stanley Turrentine, Miles Davis. Along with all the stuff that I like, Jimi Hendrix and so on and so forth. That we were kind of cherry picking this stuff. I hadn't really heard much blues. Nobody seemed to have that music, and you didn't hear it on the radio, really. And then I started coming across some things. A guy had records by this guy Freddie King. Freddie King Goes Surfing. I went, what the hell?
Right.
I had actually seen Freddie King.
Really? Right
about the time that I heard this record. And I went. So
where did you see him in Austin?
No, I saw him in Corpus Christi.
Really?
And it was an interesting moment because he played the Corpus Christi Coliseum. Him and Ted Nugent.
Wow.
And I went, wow, what two different kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, one guy was, one guy took this is like something like aspirational. The other one was like, man, this is show business.
Right.
You kind of,
yeah.
You're saying about like music and the music business and show business. And I went, huh. It was kind of an interesting thing to experience, but so he says there's one other part to that. Back when I got when I heard the twist, and I went out and cut the oleanders, and I was beating around on stuff, and there was a little incident because those were poisonous, and my mom found out about it. She started freaking out, and I thought I was kind of in trouble. My dad stopped her and said, "Olga, just stop." He goes, "Go wash your hands and come back here." I thought, oh God, I'm in trouble now. But while I was doing that, he went and got this stack of 78s, which was all big band music.
Wow.
Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Glenn
What
Miller, Harry James, Chick Webb Orchestra.
Wow.
And he started playing all that stuff. I was like, what in the world is... I mean, that was like a whole treasure trove. I've never even heard anything like this, right?
No kidding.
And so that's kind of where that started. Go, what else out in the world?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that I was doing, other than playing in that band in the bar I was telling you about, that first real gig in the cover band. I was listening to all that kind of stuff. Listening to Tower Power.
So a pretty good range of
stuff, but there wasn't blues.
Right. But I mean, the big band thing is definitely connected.
Oh, well, yeah, totally. Yeah. In fact, Stevie, we used to talk about that. We thought, he said, well, he goes, I don't really see much difference in blues and jazz other than this is simpler. The chords are different. Yeah. And he goes, really?
Yeah.
So that's why we didn't really have any when it came to what I really consider black cultural music. I go, there's really no boundaries to it. It's culture.
There's a certain sense of swing in both types of music.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely.
You kind of can't really play one or the other without that.
No, that is kind of the common denominator. And so that's the thing in music that I went, that's what's really cool, is that there.
Exactly.
And the wild card of that was funny because when Jimi Hendrix came on the scene, the first song I heard was Hey Joe.
Right.
And I was listening to the drummer, I go, that guy sounds like those guys on those big band records.
Yeah.
I go, but it's a whole different bag.
He had a jazz background.
Yeah, well, I got to know Mitch pretty well.
Oh, did you really?
We worked together, and
he
hated rock and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, he just thought the whole rock thing was. I mean, he listened to.
It's like Ginger Baker saying.
Yeah, same deal. But yeah, he listened to all the Joneses. You know,
Right.
he was a total straight jazz head.
Yeah.
And I asked him one time about we would sit and talk about what he did with Jimmy. He said, "Oh, Jimmy would just come up with things and we would just play it. You know, we liked it. It was just like our music is what it was.
Right.
We didn't call it anything.
Right.
We just So I go. So there was a guy who didn't grow up to be a rocker,
Right.
right? But he was playing with this guy who was not. He wasn't like a rocker either.
Yeah.
You know, not like what became.
He was kind of a synthesis of all this black music.
Yeah, I mean everything
Really.
that I mean very
R&B and blues.
well,
and
sure,
dance music.
but I guess that the creatively what he was is like you kind of put it all together and it comes up with something that's really different,
Mm-hmm.
which is part of the whole thing. It's not like hey, he sounds a redder version of the guy right before him.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it wasn't anything like that. But
Yeah.
inside all that, was Mitch Mitchell. I went, that guy's like that guy. Anyway, we talked about all that, and he said, yeah, I just jazz is all I like jazz.
Right. You could tell that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you could tell it. You listen to him. You listen to Ginger Baker. You listen to who was the other one? There was somebody else. I was well. I mean, God, there's so many great
Yeah.
'60s drummers
Yeah.
that were influenced by jazz.
But
Stones.
oh well, Charlie.
Charlie
I
Watts, yeah.
talked to Charlie too a couple of times.
Total-
about it. We just
total jazz head.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
totally into that. He was like, "What am I doing?" He didn't even want to be in the Rolling Stones at first.
Right,
He only did it because
right.
they would pay him. And he was a
Right.
very proper guy, but
Right.
it's like you kind of look at whatever. That's because there was all that music. There was the Rolling Stones, and these things were all on the radio. So I mean, I was a big radio guy. I listened
Right.
to stuff like, well, that's kind of cool.
Mhm.
I didn't have like a snob or I wasn't a secular snob about like I only listen to jazz or only
Well,
listen
the
to
interesting thing is radio back then was such a wide
wide
open
palette. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure in Austin it was the same way as in California. I mean, we had such great radio stations.
Well,
You know.
that was in short supply down in South Texas, and in Austin, it was richer. But when I got there, people had all this music, which brings me back to going to see this band, Paul Ray and the Cobras, that Joe Sublette was playing in. And I walked up to the building, and the band, you could hear them inside the club. I could hear this guitar tone. It was Stevie. He was
Yeah.
one of the two guitar
Right.
players.
Right.
I went out a second week.
What was the other guy? Paul Ray?
No, Denny Freeman was.
Oh,
the
was
other
it
guitar
Denny?
player.
Okay, Denny was in the band.
Yeah, Paul
All
Ray
right.
was the singer.
Right, that's right.
They're a really good
Denny
band.
was- yeah.
And they played all the kind of songs that I was listening to when I was back in Corpus.
Right.
Ronnie Law's always there. They did
Oh,
Mr.
interesting.
Magic by Grover
Okay,
Washington.
yeah,
and,
that was huge.
yeah, they did Bobby Bland tunes, which I
Right.
wasn't exactly hip to right at
Right.
that point. But I went out the next week to go see him again because I thought this band's cool. It's a good dance band, and the drummer overslept and he was late. So Joe convinced him that I was good enough to get up and sit in with him. So I played like 4 songs, and
Uh-huh.
Stevie came over to the apartment the next day, and that's where we met
Wow.
and started talking. I said, "Man, I want to work with you."
Wow.
Like I would just.
So it was an automatic chemistry then.
Well, I don't.
At least for him, it sounds like.
Well, that's a 2-part story. As I told him, I said, "Man, I want to work with you. I said, I don't care where we do it or how much we get paid or what it means. Like, I think it would be really cool." I said, I just really fucking dug that last week, and and I said, "Yeah." He said, "You like what do you like?" And we started talking. I said, "Well, I like all kinds of stuff." He goes, "You like Stevie Wonder?" I love Stevie Wonder. I love the way he plays drums. "Me too. So do I." And we started going through the whole thing. Jimi Hendrix, Miles Davis,
Right.
James Brown. And by this point in time, my whole music knowledge had broadened quite a bit, and compared to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And but the other part of that story that I heard this story. The other part of the story, like 30 years later,
Mm-hmm.
was that when he came to our apartment, he knocked on the door, and Joe Sublette answered the door. And he goes, "Hey, come on in." He goes, "No, hang on a second." He goes, "Come out here." And Joe went out on the stoop of the upstairs garage apartment,
Right.
top of the stairs. He said, Does he know anything about blues?" Stevie and Joe said, "Man, he's never played in a blues band. He doesn't." He goes, "Cool, that's cool." And Joe asked him, he said, he goes, that's cool, that's good. He goes, well, why? He goes, because he didn't have a bunch of weird concepts in his head about what stuff's supposed to be, maybe.
Right.
And I don't know, that was something that I heard this story literally 30 years after Stevie.
Did Joe tell you that?
No, a guy named Jack Moore said yes, that Joe had told him that.
Uh-huh.
Jack Moore had made a swing through Austin. He was a Providence guy, come down because of Fran Christine and all those people. Made his way to Austin. He told me that at a gig in Providence. I got Joe on the phone. I said, Joe, tell me. I said, oh no, I never told you that. I went, no. And this is at this point in time. This is 30 years after Stevie died. Right. I went, wow, that's pretty wild. So, because he walked in, came all the way back in, and I was playing.
Because that's one of the things Wes mentioned to me just now. He goes, ask him about when he first got in Stevie's band, the blues as opposed to, not really being hip to blues.
Yeah. Well, he actually walked in, and I was sitting in my drum kit. I had the headphones. I was playing kind of like alternate beats and stuff and along with the Donny Hathaway live record, Freddie White and Willie Weeks and all that. You know, and he's like, and he walked up and he was like closer than you are to me, and I was like, and he goes, no, so keep on, man. I go, no, what? I go, what's going on? He says, what are you listening to? I go, Donny Hathaway live. He goes, I got that record. It's one of my favorite records. That got the conversation going about music.
I could see that.
Right?
Yeah, I could see that.
So that's how that kind of got going. But I started hanging out with him, and we went to all kinds of places. We went to his brother's house. I started hearing
in Dallas.
No, in Austin.
Oh, in Austin.
Jimmy,
okay, so Jimmy was already there.
Thunderbirds were already doing
Jimmy
their
was
thing.
already there. Yeah.
So I started listening to all these people had all these great records. Mike Buck, it was just unbelievable. Like hundreds of great records.
Yeah. Mike was.
Mike's
he's ridiculous.
No, he's like a
collector.
Library of Congress. And so but there was all this music, and I was like, wow, man, I've never even heard of these people, and we'd listen to it, and the funny thing is, before I started working with him, he calls up the house one day. He says, and I answer. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just here hanging out." He said, "Come over to the Hull." It was this little recording studio dungeon place. I said, "Well, I mean, when day?" He said, "No, right now. Come right now." I was like, that's kind of how he was. Yeah. I went, yeah, okay. So I put down the phone and I went to the address, and I walked in, and there was a little drum set and a guitar on a stand, and W.C. Clark with the bass around his neck, and I walked in, I go, what's and W.C. Clark goes, come over here and sit down for a minute. And I was like, what is this? And I sat down at the drum kit, and he said, play. He goes, play a shuffle. He said, a shuffle? I goes, I mean, whatever you think a shuffle is. And so I started playing, he goes, no, that's real quiet. Play it real quiet. Play as quiet as you can. He goes, you know how to double? I went kind of like the dun, dun, dun. And he said, just keep doing that. It really wasn't, I don't know what it was. But he said, I'm going to come over and say a few things to you. And he'd get right over here on my right ear. He said, don't look at me. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit. I thought, this is really strange.
So he kind of gave you a drum lesson, really.
Well, he said, I hear you're from Corpus Christi. And I'm like, oh, yeah. He goes, don't look at me. Just keep playing. He said, I hear you're from Corpus Christi. I said, yeah. He said, yeah, do you go, there's the beach down there. The waves come rolling in, the swells build up, and then they come and they break, and the water runs up to the shore, and then back out, and there's more. And I was just sitting there thinking, I could envision everything he was. I mean, I'd lived it. Yeah. Been a surfer and all that stuff. He said, then you got the dunes and where they kind of roll along. And it's like all of a sudden my playing started changing.
What a trip.
It was trippy.
Yeah, that is wild.
I mean, this is one of these things, it's like I get chills thinking about it. Like I could tell all of a sudden my playing was changing, and I was just playing along. He kept talking on to me. I looked at Stevie, and Stevie started smiling. And he kind of looked at WC, and I couldn't see WC because he was back here, and but Stevie kind of went like that. And he picked up the guitar, and we jammed for about 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. And then we kind of ended it, and Stevie put the guitar. I said, well, I got to go, and he left. WC said, yeah, I do too. And we all left. I went, what the? That's wild. I know, and I went, what the hell?
That's a really interesting story because a guy I'm interviewing, D-Mar, the Nightcats drummer, he has a very similar story about how he got in Little Richard's band. And it's the exact same kind of thing where Richard just said, come on over to It was Roy Gaines.
Oh,
Roy Gaines had a
Yeah.
club, and he invited DeMar over there, and they all got together, and he goes, let's just play some blues. And that's how he got the gig. They were jamming like till 1 a.m, just playing a bunch of blues.
A lot comes out of
You know.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't long after that Stevie asked me to, to get a band, be in the band, which had just
Right.
started.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of Double Trouble for me. Yeah.
And so that was with, was Jack Newhouse the original guy, or was it?
Well, yeah,
WC.
yeah. Stevie had left Paul Ray and the Cobras to do a band with W.C. Clark,
Right.
and Freddie Farrow was
Oh,
playing,
right.
playing drums, and a guy named Mike Kindred who played B3, and
Right.
Luann Barton on vocals.
Right.
They had a
That's
band
when I
called the-
first saw you guys. That's
Well,
what it
I
was.
wasn't in that band. That was called the Triple Threat Review, but that
I thought I saw you. Didn't you play in San Francisco in '79?
no, but that was Double Trouble.
But weren't
Yes,
you in that band?
Yes, I
though?
was in that. Robert Cray and us did
Right.
shows together. Yeah, but so what I'm talking about, that's 19.
But you still had Marsha. What's her name? Luann in there.
Yeah, but so here's how the story goes. Those guys started a band. Stevie left the Paul Ray and the Cobras. They started a band called Triple Threat Review that
Right.
lasted like just a few months, and then it started falling apart.
And that was with WC,
no.
wasn't it?
Yes, with WC. I'm sorry.
Right.
They leave. He leaves Paul Ray. They start a band called Triple Threat Reviews together for just a few months, and the band starts breaking up. Stevie and Luann decide to stay together.
Right.
She says, "Well, I know a bunch of guys from Fort Worth, and I'm going to call them up." Right? Who was Freddie Farrow too? He was
Right. I know. I remember
So-
Freddie. Yeah.
So she said, I got a couple of guys I'll call." It was Jack Newhouse and Johnny Reno.
Oh, okay. The sax player.
Yeah, he played sax,
Right.
and Jack was a bass player. So that became all of a sudden Stevie Vaughan and Double Trouble featuring Miss Luann Barton on
Okay.
vocals. And that band was together for weeks when then they asked me to join because there was a bunch of other problems. So when we put that band together, I joined the band September 10th of 1978, and it was like in '79. A few months later, we came to California.
Right. Because I
Ice
saw
Cube
you guys.
Slim booked us.
Right. I remember Ice Cube. Yeah.
Danny Untermeyer.
Yeah.
So
And
he,
I saw you guys twice. I saw you at the Blues Festival, and I saw you on a double bill with Robert Cray
Yeah.
at the Keystone Palo Alto.
Keystone Palo Alto. So I mean that's the band that went out there. That was that band, right?
Right.
And I guess over the course of really like 2 short years, Johnny Reno left the band. Luann Barton had to leave the band, and it was me and Stevie and Jack Newhouse, and then it was New Year's area of 1980. Just before that, we did a gig in Houston, and Tommy Shannon came out to see us, and he sat in, and we went, "Man, this is really something."
Wow.
And I think Jack was really, our sense was that he just kind of wasn't with. We were starting to do stuff that wasn't just like straight blues, and
Right.
he didn't like that idea.
He wasn't into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tommy said, we got Tommy. It's the
Yeah.
short of it, and that's really became
Right.
the Stevie Ray Vaughan Double Trouble that
Right.
kind of started to go do things.
And so, how long was it between you guys coming out to, say, California and touring nationally? Was that like within the same year?
No,
By 1980 or?
no, because in '79 we also went to, because of Roomful, because of our connection with Roomful through the Thunderbirds and all that.
Right.
We went to Lupo's in Providence.
Okay.
Played Lupo's and picked up some other gigs along the way. No Fish Today in Baltimore, the Psychedelic, in the DC area.
Oh, yeah, I remember
Those
that.
clubs, and so
Yeah.
we kind of did a run like that, and we went to Louisiana a couple of times and Oklahoma once, but basically we were still state bound other than the California trip.
Mm-hmm.
And we got Tommy in the band, and then we got management, and really for us, and the next 2 years was just doing that kind of thing until it's a great story, because Luann, she left the band up in the Northeast, and Roomful picked her up.
Oh, that's right. I heard
And
that story.
Jerry
yeah.
Wexler saw her singing with Roomful,
Flipped out.
and flipped out, got her a deal, signed her to Elektra Records,
Right.
and produced a record that had the Muscle Shoals guys on it. So she called us one time. She said, "How'd you boys like to play for my new record release?" release party. And we were like still kind of beating around the clubs. We were like, okay, like I'll give you $100 or whatever. You know, something really. We were going like, all right, so
Easy. Yeah.
we were like, you know, kind of feeling like a little bit of tail between our legs. Like,
Right.
where are we going? You know, like,
Yeah.
wonder what we're gonna do. You know, I mean, everybody thinks these kind of things. I guess is somebody
Sure,
like, where
yeah.
are we at? What are we?
Right.
So we go play we play the record release party, and Jerry Wexler's there, and he's dancing with the band all night. With this band is great. He goes,
Wow.
you guys need to go to Montreux, Switzerland.
Wow.
Because I'm going to call my friend Claude Nobbs, who's the director, and tell him to get you guys on there. If you guys are
Jeez.
willing to go over there.
Yeah.
So we went.
Yeah.
And that's where we met David Bowie and met
Right.
Jackson Brown. It was like
Right.
a few months later, everything changed.
Yeah.
So
God,
that was
that's
kind of
amazing.
this another one of those
Yeah.
things where you go like, what just happened?
Yeah.
We became an
How do we
over-
get from A to Z?
Yeah, so then Texas Split came out in 1983, so it was like
Right.
overnight success of.
So was that after David Bowie used Stevie
Mhm.
on that record? Okay.
Well, we met David Bowie. He was in the audience of the show that we played, and then we got a message back saying David Bowie wants to meet you guys. We're going, David Bowie? What David Bowie? like there's a few of them, or not the guy, not the guy, not. They go, no, David Bowie, the Mr. David Bowie.
Yeah.
And we went down to the bar downstairs, and he was sitting right there. We sat and talked to him. I talked to him for about an hour.
Huh.
The band kind of peeled off after a little while, but I sat and talked to him, and he told me about this. The whole project he was looking to do in the fall. Do an R&B record,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted us to be a part of it, and Stevie to be on his record, and all these. I was like, okay. It was all pretty kind of fantastic kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and but that happened. Stevie was on his record and almost ended up in his touring band. But the funny thing about Switzerland was the next night we weren't leaving the next day to come back to Texas. We were leaving the day after that. And so while we were there with management. They go, why don't you guys go play in the musicians bar, which is in the basement where everybody went after the shows, and the talent and the crews and whatever. And we went, yeah, we might as well. We're over here. So we were jamming upstairs that night. Was an evening with Jackson Brown. And when they were done, they came down and they were like, they walked up, and Jackson Brown, they walked right to the front of the stage, and he went, who are you guys and where are you from? And we went, he said, my name's Stevie Vaughan. He goes, I'm from Texas. He went, you guys are great. Can we jam with you? And so we jammed until like sunup.
Wow.
And when all that deal was over, he said, he goes, I have a studio, my studio where I do all my pre-production stuff for my records. And he said, every once in a while I see somebody that I really like, and I give it up to them if they want to come and record.
Wow.
I loan it out to them. He goes, you guys ever want to come out there, let me know, and you can
What a
you can
trip.
come use it. So we did that Thanksgiving. This was in July. The Montreux gigs were in July, and we went out there Thanksgiving weekend, and we recorded these tapes, and they were kind of sitting in the closet until the whole David Bowie thing started to get kind of wild. And then we were sitting around one day. Stevie was up in Dallas rehearsing for the tour, and me and the road manager were sitting around going, look at those tapes. John Hammond had taken an interest in us, and he was thinking
That's
about
what I
starting
heard.
a record
Yeah.
label.
Right.
It never happened, and we called management. We thought, we have all these tapes. What if we called John Hammond? Maybe he could help us with something. And so our manager then called, named Chesley Milliken, called John Hammond and said, John, the guys have a whole album's worth of tapes. And he went, oh, that's great. He goes, I'll call my friend Greg Geller at Epic, and I'll just get him to give them a deal.
Wow.
Because he still had that kind of connection with
Yeah.
the label through Columbia, and
Right.
the whole thing. And John called Greg Geller, and he said, yeah, John, if you like them, because he'd already seen the band, and he'd heard the tapes, and he really loved the band.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happened, so we were.
You're saying John did, or
Mhm.
okay, yeah.
But previously, he'd
Right.
already seen us,
Right.
and heard tapes. He thought we were wonderful,
Yeah.
right? But nothing ever happened with his labels. So
Right.
Nothing was happening,
Right.
So he called Greg Geller, and Greg said the story was. I actually asked Greg about this some years later when I saw him. He said, John, if you like these guys as much, he goes, I'll be happy to sign them because I'm getting ready. They've just greenlit me reissuing the whole OK label. Had been out of print
Yeah.
for a number of years. And he said, I'm going to do that, and they'll fire me for that because it won't make money, but it needs to be back out in the public. And he goes, I'll just sign your guys too. So we had a record deal on those tapes that we made at Jackson Brown. The Jackson studio became Texas Flood.
Wow.
And so all that came out when the whole Bowie thing was going on, which all of a sudden
perfect
it
timing.
was another thing where it just happened. And so
whoa,
a series of interesting coincidences
yeah,
and events that kind of led to all of a sudden by, you know.
So how did Tommy Shannon? I'm just curious. How did Tommy Shannon look at this whole thing? Because he'd been with Johnny Winter prior to that, and I mean, in a lot of ways, he was kind of in that situation almost twice of, being discovered in a band of a Texas guitar player. And
it goes deeper than that, actually.
Okay.
But, I don't know how he saw it. He didn't really like wax poetic about things.
Right.
He's a real quiet, kind of simple
Right.
kind of guy. Didn't say much anything unless you asked
Yeah.
him. I never thought to ask him that, but he had a little bit of shock when after the Progressive Blues Experiment came out and they were kind of heading down the road, and then Johnny kind of didn't need him and Uncle John any
Right.
longer, and he
Kinda
came back.
ditched him,
He
yeah.
came back to Texas,
Right.
jobless essentially, but. It's funny because when he was a teenager, he got out of high school and he left Dumas, Texas to go to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just walking around the club scene. He walked by this club called The Fog. And he heard this guy playing guitar. And he went in there and it was Johnny Winter. That's how he met Johnny Winter.
Wow.
Right? So years later, after the whole Johnny Winter thing is over, he's back in Dallas and he's walking by the old Fog. And he goes in there and he hears another guitar player, a guy named Stevie Vaughan.
Whoa, that is bizarre.
No, I know, it really is, right?
That's really bizarre.
No, so they were
Yeah.
connected through a couple of other different bands.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Blackbird and a band called Crackerjack that they were in together for, I don't know what the time was, like 3 months for one of them and 5-6 months for the other one, and the bands broke up and all that. So when he showed up in Houston, they weren't strangers at all.
Okay.
But I don't know. Tommy'd been through quite of a music business experience and all kinds
Hell
of
yeah.
by that point in time. But
Yeah.
we didn't beg off a lot of questions. The three of us were just really tight with what we were doing, and we just
Right.
went on down the road together, and
Right.
things worked the way they did.
And how long was that band together? Was that
13 years. I was
14
with I was with Stevie 13.
But how
years.
long was Tommy in the band? Like 7 or something?
Well, that would have been 10.
10. Okay.
10 years.
Yeah. And what year did Stevie pass?
90.
That was in 90.
Tommy
Okay.
joined in 80. I joined in 78. 12 plus it was, right at 13.
Right. Right.
Was that math right? Is that right?
Oh, that sounds right. It's like 13 years.
Yeah, 12 plus.
12 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how about the whole thing? I mean, what year did Stevie clean up from drugs?
86.
86.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that like to go through?
Hell.
Was it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Not the cleaning up part, but all the stuff that leads up to the moment where
You saying where he went way off?
Yeah, well,
off the
we
deep
were all
end.
we were all off the.
All of you.
We all broken out of camp. We were
Right.
we were all out there.
Were you guys like just a ton of coke and alcohol?
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, our, the success that came along was grueling. There was.
I can't imagine.
There was a lot of. It's grueling because there's a lot of opportunity, and you're thinking, God, I've been kind of thinking about this and working towards something maybe like this ever happening for, really most of your life,
Mhm.
and now it's happening. So you keep going and you keep going, and we kept becoming more and more successful, and more things were happening, and we just kind of went off the deep end. I think Stevie was close to dying, and we were all in kind of bad shape, and so it came to an end. It was like we went off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of started all over again. So by
Yeah.
1990, everything was, we were doing really good.
Yeah.
The music was good. The band was good.
Yeah.
Everything we kind of worked out a bunch of different things and bad decisions we had made. We kind of put it all back together, and then it was over.
Now, were you on the Brothers record?
No.
Okay.
No, they had made a decision to, as much as they could, and they weren't completely successful with this, was to try to do something, the two of them, with all different people than
Really?
the old neighborhood gang.
Okay.
They wanted to say, let's just do something entirely
So who's
different.
on it? Who played drums? George?
No,
Not
nobody.
George Harrison?
Nobody.
Oh,
Nobody
okay.
like
Nobody that
they-
they I see.
No,
Okay.
it was all a bunch of different people,
Like
New York,
session
New
people.
York guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't he like, well, I'll get this guy from junior high or the guy from my
Right,
band
right.
2 bands ago, or
Yeah.
one of our current. They just said we're not going to do any of that. We're going to get, and Nile Rodgers kind of helped direct that selection.
Yeah.
Larry Aberson, I'm trying to remember the drummers.
Hmm.
I didn't even know these. I didn't know the guys. I met them later.
Yeah.
Session guys.
What would you say was the high point of playing with Stevie for you?
Every night. He was just an incredible player. I mean, I can't even tell you all the ways that I couldn't even, by language, could tell you all the ways, but it was just every night on stage was just wonderful.
Yeah. So he was always coming up with new stuff, and
yeah, he was just a brilliant, intuitive player. The stuff just
Right.
came out of him.
Yeah.
I mean, we were kind of like a jam band.
yeah,
We were like a whatever our music was. We were like a jam band because it could change every night.
right.
You know, of course, we wrote songs and they had structure to them, and there was all that. But you know, we would do all sorts of different things. I mean, really, at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't matter in front of 40,000 people.
That's pretty exciting, man.
It's very exciting. We could
Yeah.
be in front of 40,000 people. He'd just start playing a riff, and we'd just jump on it. We didn't
Yeah.
know where it was going to go,
Yeah.
what it was going to be. How it
That's
was
the
gonna
wonderful thing about having a band for a period of time like
Yeah,
that, where
it is.
everyone can read each other.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
In fact, it was right. I think it was 1988. I forget the year, but we got a call. The Grateful Dead wanted us to open their New Year's run
Really?
at Oakland
Wow,
Coliseum.
too much, man.
Yeah, and Stevie said, "Why do they want us?"
Uh,
He said, "We don't have anything in common with them." They said, "No, they think you do.
huh.
They think y'all are just like them." He was like, who thinks that? I mean, why? He said because they're kind of a jam band and they think you guys are too. They like it. that was the commonality, right? And I go, okay, but
Yeah.
Stevie said, no, I don't think we should do that. I was like, I think we should.
You guys do a lot of shows with David Bowie?
None.
None, really.
No.
So did he do that tour or not?
Oh yeah, he did the tour.
He did the tour. He just didn't join the band.
Right.
Right. Okay.
That was kind of the moment where, I mean, it's kind of probably a long, deeper kind of thing of philosophy, like lived philosophy, but things were getting a little bit strange, and I knew he wasn't really comfortable being in that. And then, of course, there was us.
Right.
We were having these discussions about what do we do, why he goes on this tour, and he had some, you know, God love him, they were generous but kind of crazy ideas like, well, I'll share my money with you guys. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. You know, I go, is it 2 years long? Does it go 3 years? Does it, you know, what is it? And it got to a point where he just decided to leave. And then I think what also helped that, honestly, is that we'd secured the deal with CBS Epic Records, and
Right.
we were going to have a record.
Right.
So it was like,
Yeah.
you know.
He had something to really
Yeah, but
aim
I
for,
mean,
yeah.
I think that's what I'd heard him in a couple of different interviews tell people. They say, "What is it you always wanted to do?" He said, "The only thing I've ever wanted to do was have my own band and do my own music." And I remember thinking during all that, I thought, where does that statement, the truth of that statement, fit into where we're all at right now? And it just ended up being that's what we did.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the bigger conflict was all the people talking in his ear saying, "No, go do that thing with David
God, I
Bowie
can
and leave
imagine,
these
yeah.
guys. You know, just
I can
go
imagine.
do that. Just
Yeah.
go do that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, you know." And it didn't. I think what came to me is that it really didn't fully register with him because he really followed his heart. He didn't
Good for
follow
him.
markets. He didn't follow
good for him.
trends. Yeah, he just followed his heart. And that's why one of the reasons that made him so special.
Yeah.
He wasn't chasing anything.
Right.
You know.
Right. He stayed true to what he did.
Yeah, he did, and
Yeah.
whatever that was something he kind of, and we kind of felt in the moment whether it was seemed real or not, or and so that's kind of what always guided us.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with markets, or if you do this, you could have this kind of record, and you get that kind of record, you can play these kind of places.
Yeah.
Play those kind of places, you maybe get these kind of awards and all that stuff.
That wasn't
That
important.
was
Yeah.
never even in our.
Good for him.
That was never even in our discussions or
Yeah.
dialogue. It wasn't
Good
even in
for
our
him.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just making the music, and things happened, and we just kept doing things.
Yeah.
Is all it really amounted to.
Well, I can't imagine what that was like when he was killed, man.
it was horrible. The worst thing ever happened in my life.
Yeah.
I was just, I can't even describe it. It took me years to process that
I bet.
and do things with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was so all dimensional.
Yeah.
You know, that it was quite a ball of twine to unwind. Yeah. It took a long time to roll that ball up that.
I would think so.
It took a long while to
Yeah.
unwind it. Yeah, and but it was great, great experience.
Yeah.
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 You know,
Now you guys kept it going as Double Trouble for a while, didn't you?
we did
Really?
not, no.
Or well, you guys ended up in some bands where it was you and Tommy again. Though,
Well,
right?
yeah. I mean, right after. Before we went off and did the Alpine Valley, before we did that, right? We were getting ready to go do that late August, and we had just done a tour. Us and Joe Cocker had just done a tour together, and that ended like early August. And this place, the Austin Rehearsal Complex, had just opened up, and I was hanging around there going to see two. My friends started that place to see what was going on, and I ran back into Doyle Bramhall too, who I had known since he was 11 years old.
Right.
And he was back in town, and he was trying to do demos for a deal he was hoping to get. And Charlie Sexton, I went back to visit him. He had a little studio, and I walked in on him. He was listening. He's playing this reel-to-reel of a guitar and drums doing this song. He played drums on it. He's very talented, and as it turned out, Doyle was playing guitar, and they had written a song called "Living in a Dream." And I thought, we could get a band. It just came to me. I went, we could get a band. I said, Jimmy and Stevie are going to do this record. They're doing this record, and then they're going to go off and do a handful of shows to promote it. I go, we ought to get a band together. Me and Tommy,
Right.
and you and Doyle. We could just do some gigs, right?
Yeah.
Have some fun. And they went, yeah, it'd be cool. Yeah, everyone's busy doing their thing. And so,
Now they ended up having a band together, right?
well, I'm getting to that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So we go off and do Alpine Valley.
Right.
Stevie dies, and I come back, and we're sitting around going. I was just sitting there, and one of the things that occurred to me, I went, well, maybe we could get that band together, go do some gigs or something. I kind of didn't feel like doing any of that, but I'd already thrown that idea out there. The
Right.
four of us.
Right.
Well, Mark Proct, who was Doyle's manager, who had managed the Fabulous Thunderbirds. Mike Kappas from Rosebud
Right.
called
I
one
know
day and
Mike.
said,
Yeah.
he said, hey, Robert Cray is doing this national tour, and pretty much the shows are sold out, so we're kind of looking market by market. He goes, are there any new bands around Austin? Anybody hot or something? You go, because we're coming. Be there, I think the show was like in 3 weeks or something. He said, because you know what, Chris and Tommy and Doyle and Charlie Sexton put this new band together. He went, well, we want them to open for us. Yeah, get those guys. Can you get them? He went, yeah. So all this is bullshit.
Yeah.
We never played a lick together.
Right.
So he came to all of us and said, I got you guys a gig. You guys have been talking about playing. He goes, I got you a gig open for Robert Cray in 3 weeks. So we went, okay, we can do that. I guess we can do that. So we started rehearsing. We said, how long do we have to play? It was like 40-minute set. He said, these guys can play 40 minutes. We went, yeah, shit, we can go put together a band and play 40 minutes worth of material. And so we started working on that in a few days before the show. We had 40 minutes of cobbled together various, mostly covers and a couple of 3 originals. And,
Right.
And Mark Proct comes over at the end of a rehearsal. He goes, what's the name of the band? And well, we don't have a name. So you got to have a name. I remember I was looking up at the ARC, Austin Rehearsal Complex, but I said, wait a minute, what about Michael, the Archangels? And Dole said, we don't have anybody named Michael in the band. I went, well, how about the Archangels? And everyone went, yeah, sure, whatever, we need a name. So we debuted as the Archangels.
Interesting.
And then immediately we got a call from Gary Gersh at Geffen Records that heard about the band and wanted to sign
Wow.
them. It was just like, that was a real overnight success.
That's amazing.
Not to mention that everybody had been
no
working their
kidding.
whole life doing.
Yeah.
But it was like, and that's how that band got started.
Right. Now, do you still play with those guys occasionally?
We've
Because I know they did a reunion at one point.
We did a reunion a year before last, 2
Right.
years ago.
Right.
We actually did some dates last year with Carlos
Right.
Santana, in Texas, but every once in a while we get back together and we play some dates. We did
Right.
18 shows, like in a little over a year and a half.
Right. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, that all came back. Somebody
Yeah.
called me asking me if I'd be involved with helping with a charitable thing, and at first I declined it. It's kind of coming out of COVID and things were so sketchy, and then he called back again and said, "Did you ever come up with anything?" I said, "No." I said, "Wait a minute, what if I get the Archangels here? That'd be awesome." So I called Mark Proctor. I said, "If you can round the guys up," I said, "This is the guy, Bill Murray was his name, not Bill Murray, a different Bill Murray."
Uh-huh.
He said, "Oh yeah, I know all about what he does, and I know about the charity and all this stuff." And everybody said, "Yeah, we can do that." And so when we got together, and then Charlie said, "Yeah, it's been a long time. It's a pretty large venue." He said, so he actually called Chris Robinson. He said he'd come be a guest. And then
That was the Black Crowes guy?
Yeah, Black Crowes singer. And then Gary Clark said he'd
Right.
join us. So that was kind of Gary came on at the end of the performance, and Chris was with us all night. So we did most of the whole night, but we did all this thing. It was a success, and Live Nation just said we got dates.
Wow.
We've got dates.
God.
So this has happened with that band.
Yeah.
6 or 7 times since we broke up.
Jeez.
When we get back together and
Face to break up, doesn't it?
Apparently.
So, but you have really stayed busy. I mean, you've been working with so many different people. You work with Kenny Wayne Shepherd now. Didn't you work with Johnny Lang for a while?
Well, the only time we worked together on the Experience Hendrix tour.
Okay, maybe
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
of. Yeah.
But
Was that with Billy Cox as well?
He was on that tour. This is the first tour that he hasn't done, the one that we just finished. Yeah, but when the Archangels broke up, right at the end of that, Stephen Bruton. Did you know Stephen
Yeah,
Bruton?
well, I knew who he was.
Well, so
Yeah, I
Stephen
didn't know
Bruton
him.
called me to come in and play drums on this artist named Malford Milligan, who I'd never heard of, but I went in and I did probably about half the record, the last half of it, and we were finishing it up, and I said, "What are you going to do with this record?" And Malford said, "I guess I'm just going to let him put it out and see what happens." I said, "You can't do that. You can't do that with a record." He said, "Well, you got a better idea?" I said, "Yeah, how about me and Tommy Shannon and you get some other people and we'll start a band." That's how Storyville came about.
Oh, interesting. Right. I remember that.
And
Yeah.
it was called...
He was the singer, right?
He was the
Yeah.
singer, and it was his record deal, but the label, he was previously in a band called Storyville, and they'd already gotten the rights to use the name because they thought, the name Malford Milligan's not like a real ringy market
Doesn't roll
name. They
off
said,
the tongue,
we
yeah.
want to put the record out as Storyville. So
Right.
we put together a band called Storyville. We were together for 5+ years.
Right.
David Grissom and David Holt and
Right.
Tommy and me and Malford.
Yeah.
And David Holt had come from the Mavericks, and Grissom had been played with Joe Ely and John Mellencamp, and
Right.
so it was a good band.
Yeah.
And we got that deal. It was a Code Blue. It was a Tone Cool Code Blue Atlantic Records band. We converted the deal to Atlantic Records.
So was it all 3 of those labels? Or was it all one label with all 3 names on it?
It was Tone Cool.
I was
and
on
then
Tone Cool for a
and
while,
then we got they left that deal.
Okay.
And we got a deal with Code Blue. It was Code Blue out of England. Our
Right.
deal came out of England, but it was Code Blue / domestic. It was Atlantic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we just basically went from one. Yeah, the other one was just one label. It was Atlantic Group. Went from Tone Cool to Atlantic.
Now, Tommy Shannon died, right?
No.
Oh, is he still alive?
Yeah.
Does he still play at all, or is he
No.
retired?
Yeah, he's retired.
Okay.
I saw him
I couldn't remember.
a couple of months ago. We went and had lunch.
Uncle John died, though,
Yes,
right?
he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unk. So those were the bands you asked me about, like you and Tommy Shannon.
Right.
Those were the 3 bands that we were
Right.
together.
That you guys were together.
Yeah, and that was,
You guys speak pretty regular?
I mean, regularly.
Once a month or something? Once every couple of months?
Maybe not that often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you stay in touch?
Yeah, we stay in touch, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Double Trouble's, our last tour manager, who's co-manages Carlos Santana, moved to Texas last year.
Wow.
And their daughter moved there as a surgeon. And so his name's Skip. He and Tommy and I went out and all got lunch a while back, and then Reese Winans came through with Joe Bonamassa and
Oh, right.
Skip and
Right.
Reese and Tommy went out and had lunch.
You're
And
on top of Skip Taylor, are you?
Skip Rickard.
Okay. Yeah,
No, it's the
sure.
tour manager.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a
All right.
business guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skip Taylor's the guy that was with Canned Heat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still around. I probably ought to jump, man. Anything else you want to tell us?
No, I was just trying to answer questions.
Yeah,
here.
no, that was great.
Tell
man.
stories.
That was great. Yeah.
Hopefully, most of everything I said was mostly true.
Well, as long as it's mostly true.
Well, they say memory's the best liar. Memory's the greatest liar.
Yeah, that's
Don't
really,
call me on all the
that's
details.
really true, man. It's always a good idea to kind of fact check with other people.
Well, I hate like fact check with somebody else who can't remember either.
Exactly. Get a different
You
version.
know less than I do. You just have a
Yeah.
different version.
Get a different version.
I love that. I came across that. I think last year, someone said that one of those old great philosophers said that memory's the greatest liar. It's like, exactly what was that? And yeah, but so that's thereabouts. That's the truth of the story.
Yeah.
Thereabouts.
Well, man, it's really great to talk to you, Chris.
You too.
I've always enjoyed getting a chance to just yak a little bit. So it's nice to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, man, come on out we're playing the Jam tomorrow. So
What time is it?
it's like 11:30, I think.
Morning?
No, it's night. It's gonna be a late night.
I don't know, man. Don't count on me.
Yeah. Okay.
I like my rest these days.
No, I understand, man. I've been in
Last
bed
night I went to bed late at midnight.
Right. I've been going to sleep at like 10 or 11 every night.
I know.
So,
What
yeah.
time is it now? You got to go work.
I got to go work.
Let me
yeah.
let you do that.